So I covered a topic last week that most of you, if you didn't catch the show, you probably saw in the media relative to regional banks getting into some real trouble on some pretty sizable loans for which their collateral, their security for repayment of the loans was basically completely illusory, non-existent, valueless, and the banks were left holding the bag on, for example, Zion's Bank, 2 loans totaling $60 million to 2 related investment groups. And then there's First Alliance Bank, I believe First Alliance, something like $94 million loan. Okay, so I was reading an article, and Zion's, by the way, took a $1 billion hit last week to its value because of this. That's how serious it is. Reading the article in the CNBC over the weekend that I'm going to share with you, because when I started reading it as a 30-year practicing real estate litigator doing quite a bit of fraud litigation as well, something just didn't add up, right? You know, when something doesn't pass the smell test. So I dug a little deeper and I went and I pulled up the lawsuit today. There's the lawsuit that Zion's Bank has filed against all of these individual defendants, okay, which supposedly guaranteed these loans and made representations in connection therewith. I'm going to show you, if you'll hang with me for a few minutes, I'm going to show you a couple of the actual exhibits from the lawsuit as filed on October 15th, 2025 in the Los Angeles Superior Court. Okay, this it's not right. It's not adding up. I'd love to get your thoughts and comments after you hear the presentation, see what I'm going to show you, because this may just be the tip of the iceberg, okay? And it's not good. So the story, and by the way, before I jump in, as I always humbly ask, please subscribe to the channel. If you're not subscribed, we're growing the community. I appreciate to all of you, and also to the many subscribers that have joined in the last few days. So thanks for being here. So this out of CNBC on October 18th. It's entitled, "The Alleged Sweeping Betrayal of Trust That Rocked Zion's Bank and Spooked Wall Street." It says Zion's Bank Corporation lost $1 billion of its valuation in a single day on Thursday last week after disclosing $60 million worth of loans it had made that were unlikely to be repaid. What led to that point was a messy, tangled web of loans that Zion said were surreptitiously subordinated by the borrowers, all the while the collateral was effectively eliminated. Okay? And about 290 pages of exhibits to this lawsuit are all of the messy loan documents that they're referencing. But what caught me and raised a red flag is when I see the word surreptitiously subordinated. And I want to convey this in a way that you guys, A, don't click off after a few minutes, that's understandable, palatable, and not too much in the weeds. Okay, but the bottom line is a lender's consent has to be obtained, written consent, for a valid subordination of an interest, okay, in a piece of real property or collateral for it to be effective, where the lender agrees they're going to go down a notch or 2 notches in the priority of repayment, okay, has to be obtained by written consent of the lender. I've seen situations where lender's consent is supposedly obtained, but it was forgery or fraudulent document prepared. I'm litigating one right now I shared on Saturday's video. So that raised a red flag, because you don't surreptitiously subordinate unless it's forgery. So when I pulled this lawsuit this morning, I thought, wow, I'm going to see a whole bunch of juicy fraud allegations, forgeries, none of that, okay? We have a complaint for 3 causes of action. Can you see that? Breach of guarantee against Cantor 2, breach of guarantee against Cantor 4, and the constructive trust. No cause of action for fraud. And I'll tell you why I think that is in a second. So that was red flag number 1. Let me continue on with the story. Shares of regional banks tumbled on Thursday as fears mounted around the health of their lending businesses. Zions took a 13% share plunge. ended up sparking worries about possible broader issues with lending of the regional bank sector. Okay, and it knocked the whole U.S. stock market on Thursday. Dow fell 300 points. Now, it did recover a bit, and it's up more today. But it doesn't mean that there isn't massive failure, okay, lurking just below the surface. I think you'll agree once you see, I'm going to show you that it is mind-boggling, okay, how this stuff even happens. Zion's subsidiary, California Bank and Trust, is suing. It says the name of the guys, Andrew Stupin and Gerald Marcel. You can see it in that first page. That of the Cantor Group, along with their associate. Okay, and what the lawsuit alleges, which it does, a sweeping betrayal of trust by sophisticated financial borrowers who abused Cal Bank and Trust confidence. And basically systematically manipulated, it says, and eliminated the collateral protections that are supposed to secure the bank loans. Again, red flag number 2, you don't just eliminate collateral protections if the documentation was done the right way. And in this case, from my perspective, I'm not a layperson in this, but I'm giving you thoughts as a layperson, it wasn't done the right way, okay? So we know that there were 2 loans totaling $60 million. But what they don't say here is the loans first originated as much smaller lines of credit going back to 2016 and 2017. And all of these documents here, as exhibits to this lawsuit, show how over the years the lines of credit were progressively increased at the request of the borrowers, right? So you would think, well, there must have been additional ongoing underwriting review, check and balances in place to make sure that these borrowers were complying, right? For example, you can't get additional money if you haven't shown proper compliance with the prior loans, all right? So again, we'll get into it. So we go back many, many years of relationship with these borrowers. It wasn't just a one-off situation. Now, the deeds that were supposed to secure the loans, it says in the article, again, were ultimately subordinated without Cal Bank and Trust knowledge, Zion said in the lawsuit. And that is kind of a half-truth. It's probably just negligently written here because the person doesn't understand how these transactions work, okay? And it says the underlying properties were transferred to other entities or were in foreclosure, meaning the collateral was irretrievably lost according to Zion. That's true. The collateral, I'll show you from the actual bank's lawyer, sent a letter to the borrowers just about 10 days before they filed the lawsuit, giving them a list of all the properties that were pledged as collateral, supposedly for this loan, of which they were gone, either foreclosed, had been assigned away, transferred, were in various stages of default, okay? And it says Cal Bank and Trust says that they were stripped of their collateral by these defendants, and they were kept in the dark, or in the article, for years, okay, by these defendants about the true status of its security interests. Since when is a bank left in the dark for years about the true status of its security interest, right? The method by which it's going to get repaid in the event that the borrower's default, okay? So again, now we're talking about years again. So this caused Cal Bank and Trust to initiate its own investigation, and they supposedly, and their lawyers uncovered this massive problem and fraud. Western Alliance Bank, make a note to yourself, I'm going to cover that. Western Alliance Bank also made loans to subsidiary groups of this same borrower. I hear it's about $98 million, and they're also suing. I'll track it down and report separately on that, okay? So let me start real quickly with an exhibit to this lawsuit. It's pages 330 through 339 of the lawsuit. And it's a letter from Zion's Bank lawyers, okay, or Cal Bank and Trust, to all the borrowers and the guarantors, dated about 10 days before they filed the lawsuit. And what shocked me in this letter is that the lawyers lay out how many, what the actual properties were that were supposedly secured this loan. Look at this list. Boom, boom. All those properties, their addresses, and what the status of the properties was. Sorry if I'm flashing that too quickly, okay? And there's a third page. There are 8 individual properties listed. I will tell you these guys, not in bad places, okay? We're talking LA, we're talking Corona del Mar, Texas, Los Angeles. So there were properties all over the place. And what the loan documents said that the borrower was supposed to do is provide basically an assignment of their interest, each of those houses, each of those properties or structures or buildings for Cal Bank and Trust to secure its loan, okay? And it was supposed to be done by way of a document, another exhibit to the lawsuit. Don't want to go too long today. What's called a collateral assignment of mortgage deed of trust and related loan documents. There it is in all of its glory with my highlights. Collateral assignment. See that? Okay. Now this document needed to be effective, needed to be recorded in the chain of title for each of the pieces of collateral, the properties I just shared with you, okay, on the lawyer's demand. And I will tell you this, according to reading the lawsuit, not one of these documents was recorded in the chain of title for not one of those properties. Let's look at the top of this document. What does it say? It says, when recorded, return to Zions Bank Corporation, their address in Irvine. Who does it say attention to? See that attention up here? That guy's name is Matt Bullock, first vice president. Okay? This document, this collateral assignment, didn't even describe one of the parcels. All the information was left blank and needed to be filled in, identify each of those 8 parcels, separate deeds of trust, separate parcel numbers, the document recording number, so that it was properly indexed in the chain of title in the county where the property is located. All right, and this one was even, it was signed by a manager of the assigner or borrower, and it was even notarized. This thing was actually notarized, okay, on the day that all of the loan documents were restated in what year you see that? 2023. Okay, May 10th, 2023, supposedly all the loan documents were restated and the lines of credit were increased to $30 million each, and all this was supposed to be done the right way. So you guys tell me, okay, either there was massive negligence and lack of oversight by the bank, which just over a period of years, and even as of May of 2023, their underwriting department failed to check on the fact that 8 of these things were not recorded that should have been recorded against the 8 pieces of collateral identified in the lawyer's demand. Okay, so let's assume that that happened, that not one of them was recorded, that Mr. Bullock did not check to make sure that any of them were recorded in the chain of title. You understand they didn't have a legal, maybe a pursuant to contract, they did not have a perfected or valid, okay, security interest without having that document recorded in the chain of title. That's why these borrowers were able to pull all the shenanigans they did, assign the properties, and do whatever they did with those pieces of real property to deprive the bank of their supposed first priority interest, which was, again, as an assignee through these borrowers. Again, I don't want to get too much in the weeds with you, but simply put, there was a catastrophic failure. I think it was either massive lack of oversight, which we hear so often is the start and the root of these bank failures, or on the worst possible level, I hate to go here, but it was somebody inside complicit, okay, in what was going on with these borrowers. And all I'm going to tell you is this, I'm not making any assertions, I don't know, all right? Matt Bullock is the guy that signed all the loan documents for Cal Bank and Trust, Zions Bank, in May of 2023, okay? And it said that his LinkedIn page says Executive Vice President, EVP, Vice President of Commercial Banking Manager at California Bank and Trust. That is the title he signed, supposedly signed all of the loan documents in May of 2023, okay? And his page says that he's been Senior Vice President, Team Lead, California Bank and Trust from September 2003 to present, 22 years. All I'm going to say is this. When I try to search for this guy as any relation to Cal Bank and Trust right now or Zion's Bank, I get nothing. Okay, the AI overview says that gives me a list of all of the current executive officers of the bank. All right, and they have someone else listed here for the person in charge of the lending. Okay, so Vice President, Director of Commercial Banking is not Matt Bullock. So there's very little here. If you guys can find out for me, let me know. Did Matt Bullock depart the firm, just like our friend, the senior strategist at Goldman Sachs, departed Goldman Sachs last week? So again, that would be pure speculation. I don't know. Okay, but he's not showing up as a current listed executive officer of the bank. Okay, so we'll see how this develops. But this lawsuit's going to proceed to the court. I will keep track of it. But it is a massive failure. And this is what we always go back and say, how did this get missed? How did this get missed? Who missed it? And why was it missed? And what do these people know? Okay, who do they know? Were these investor groups buddies of somebody in the bank? Were they not? Were they purely arm's length transactions? If they were, why were 8 pieces of property, not 1, not 2, not 5, but 8 pieces of collateral pursuant to this lawyer's letter not properly secured through the assignment document? All right, I'll leave it there today. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the content, leave me a like. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed. And with that being said, I apologize for going a little bit long today, but I wanted to get this out there to you. Talk to y'all soon. Bye.